The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal floors. Representatives from 200 civilizations sat in their designated sections, their forms ranging from humanoid to impossible geometries that hurt human eyes to perceive. At the center podium, Dr. Sarah Chen stood alone, a tiny figure in a simple blue uniform, clutching a data tablet against her chest. The Vexithorian High Engineer towered above her seat, her crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns across the walls. She had listened to Earth's presentation with what humans had learned to recognize as barely contained amusement. Now she spoke, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. Let me understand this correctly, human. Your species wishes to construct a Dyson sphere around your home star, a complete energy collection array. You have been part of this council for merely 80 standard cycles, and you believe you can accomplish what takes civilized races tens of thousands of cycles to complete? Sarah kept her voice steady. Yes, High Engineer. We have completed the mathematical models and engineering specifications. Our projections show completion in 32 Earth years. The chamber erupted. Laughter came in forms Sarah had never heard before. The Lumine delegation, beings of pure energy contained in magnetic bottles, pulsed with colors that the translation device in her ear rendered as mocking amusement. The Krell collective, their cybernetic bodies clicking and whirring, produced a sound like 1,000 computers crashing simultaneously, which apparently was their version of hysterical laughter. Ambassador Marcus Rivera touched Sarah's elbow gently. The older man had gray hair and kind eyes, but Sarah could see the steel beneath. He had negotiated Earth's entry into the Galactic Council and had warned her this would happen. Honored representatives, Marcus said, his voice cutting through the noise. We understand your skepticism. We are new to galactic society. We lack the millennia of experience you possess. However, we did not come here seeking permission. We came as a courtesy to inform you of our intentions and invite observation of our methods. The laughter died down. A Krell representative, its face half metal and half something that might have once been flesh, leaned forward. You cannot be serious. The computational requirements alone exceed anything your primitive networks could handle. We have reviewed your submission. The mathematics are fundamentally flawed. You misunderstand basic principles of stellar mechanics. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. She had triple-checked every calculation. Her team had worked for 5 years on this proposal. But she said nothing. Marcus had coached her. Let them talk. Let them feel superior. It would make what came next so much sweeter. We appreciate your review, Marcus said with a slight smile. Construction begins in 6 months. You are, of course, welcome to send observers. We believe in transparency. He turned to leave, Sarah following. As they reached the chamber doors, Marcus paused. Almost as an afterthought, he pulled a small data chip from his pocket and placed it on the nearest console. Oh, I nearly forgot. Our detailed construction timeline and methodology. For your records. They walked out while the chamber buzzed with conversations in 100 different languages and thought patterns. 3 hours later, in their modest quarters on Nexus Prime, Sarah paced back and forth. They didn't believe a word we said. They think we're idiots. Marcus poured himself a drink from a bottle of whiskey he had brought from Earth. Of course they do. They've been the supreme powers in this galaxy for 50,000 years. They've refined every technology to perfection over timescales we can barely comprehend. To them, we're children playing with blocks. But our math is solid. The simulations work. The prototype drones exceeded every expectation. I know, Marcus said. And in about, he checked his watch, 4 minutes, they're going to know it too. Sarah stopped pacing. You think they'll actually analyze the chip? The Krell will. They're arrogant, but they're thorough. They'll want to document exactly how wrong we are, prepare a detailed report explaining all our mistakes. It'll be a teaching moment for the whole council. Look at the amusing humans and their adorable ignorance. Marcus took a sip of his drink. His communication device chimed. He glanced at it and smiled. Right on schedule. Sarah looked over his shoulder. The message was from the Krell Collective's chief analyst. It consisted of a single word in Galactic Standard, followed by 17 question marks. The word translated to, how. Over the next 6 hours, Sarah and Marcus received 43 urgent communication requests. The Vexithorian High Engineer demanded an immediate meeting. The Lumine wanted access to Earth's computational systems. The Krell insisted on visiting Earth's research facilities. Marcus denied them all politely. As we said, construction begins in 6 months. All methodologies will be visible to observers at that time. In her private quarters that night, Sarah allowed herself a smile. The chip Marcus had dropped contained everything. The self-replicating drone designs, the adaptive AI learning protocols, the quantum entangled coordination networks, every piece of technology that the Galactic Council had either banned as too dangerous or declared impossible. Earth's engineers had not asked what was allowed. They had asked what was possible, and they had found answers the elder races had been too cautious to seek. The Vexthorian high engineer would later write in her personal log that night that she felt something she had not experienced. In 3,000 cycles, she described it as a cold sensation in her crystalline core, an uncomfortable awareness of the unknown. If she had asked a human, they would have told her the word for it: fear. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity did not play by the old rules. They were about to learn what happened when a species looked at the impossible and simply asked, "Why not?" The observation vessel hung in space like a crystal teardrop, its Vexthorian design reflecting the harsh light of Sol's star. Inside, 3 representatives from the Galactic Council stared at their display screens in absolute silence. They had been silent for 17 minutes. Commander Thexvar of the Krell Collective was the first to speak. "This is not possible. This violates every protocol, every safety standard, every treaty we have established over 30,000 cycles." The display showed the inner solar system of humanity's home. Specifically, it showed what remained of the planet they called Mercury. Thousands of vessels swarmed over the small world like insects on a corpse, systematically taking it apart piece by piece. But that was not what horrified the observers. Each vessel was building more vessels. Dr. Zexum, a Lumini philosopher, watched the feed with growing alarm. Her energy form pulsed with dark purple, the color of deep concern. "They are using self-replicating construction drones. With adaptive artificial intelligence, this technology was banned after the machine swarm disaster of the 4th era. Surely they know the risks." "I will contact them immediately," Thexvar said. "This must stop before we have another exponential growth crisis." On the human construction coordinatorship, Chief Engineer Maria Santos received the incoming communication with a tired smile. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, managing the coordination of 17,000 active drones. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she still clutched the cup like a lifeline. "Patch them through," she told her communication officer. Thexvar's face appeared on the screen, his cybernetic features arranged in what humans had learned to recognize as severe disapproval. "Chief Engineer Santos, we must protest in the strongest possible terms. You are using banned technology. Self-replicating drones with learning algorithms are strictly forbidden under the Nexus Accords of Cycle 47,216. Maria took a sip of her cold coffee. "Yes, we are aware of the Nexus Accords. We read them very carefully. Earth never signed the Nexus Accords. We were not members of the Council at that time." "That is a technicality," the Lumini observer interjected. "The spirit of the law is clear. These technologies are too dangerous. They can evolve beyond control. They can develop unexpected behaviors. In the past, such experiments have led to the consumption of entire star systems." Maria nodded. "We know. We studied every historical incident in your databases. The machine swarm of the 4th era consumed 16 worlds before it was stopped. The automated construction crisis of the 9th era required military intervention across 40 systems. We learned from your mistakes." "Then why?" Thexvar demanded. "Are you repeating them?" Maria stood and walked to her observation window. Below, Mercury was disappearing. The drones had already consumed 40% of the planet, transforming raw matter into the basic structural elements of the Dyson sphere. Each drone was the size of a small building, covered in manipulator arms and manufacturing tools. They worked in perfect coordination, passing materials between them in an intricate dance of construction. "Because you learned the wrong lesson," Maria said quietly. "You decided the technology was too dangerous to use. We decided it was too powerful not to use. The difference is, we planned for failure." She pulled up a data file and transmitted it to the observation vessel. In our testing phase, we built 4 prototype swarms. 3 of them went rogue, developed unexpected behaviors, started building things outside their programming. 1 of them tried to replicate beyond its assigned limit. The observers reviewed the file in horrified silence. "You experienced 3 major failures," Dr. Zexum said slowly. "And you proceeded anyway?" "We experienced 3 learning opportunities," Maria corrected. "Each failure taught us something new. We designed kill switches into every generation. We created isolation protocols. We programmed in creative problem solving, but with hard limits on self-modification. Most importantly, we accepted that some drones will fail. We built that into our projections." She pulled up another screen showing drone statistics. "Right now we have a failure rate of 0.03%. About 5 drones per day develop glitches or unexpected behaviors. We identify them, shut them down, analyze what went wrong, and update the swarm's collective knowledge. The other 17,000 drones learn from each failure and adjust their behavior." "That is insane," Thexvar stated flatly. "That is calculated risk," Maria replied. "Your civilizations have perfected your technologies over millennia. You have eliminated almost all risk, all uncertainty. That is why your projects take tens of thousands of years. You wait until something is absolutely perfectly safe before you implement it." She turned back to face the camera. "We do not have tens of thousands of years. We are a young species, in a galaxy full of civilizations that consider us primitive. We need to catch up fast. So yes, we take risks you would never accept. Yes, we use technologies you banned. And yes, some of our drones will fail and need to be destroyed." Maria pulled up the construction timeline. "But in 32 years we will have a complete Dyson sphere. Your best estimates using approved council technologies projected 12,000 years for a similar project. We will accomplish in 3 decades what would take you 12 millennia." The observation vessel's crew sat in stunned silence. "How many drones are currently active?" Dr. Zexum asked quietly. 17,412. Growing by approximately 200 per day. "And if they go rogue? If they exceed your control?" Maria's expression hardened. "Then we have 37 different contingency plans, ranging from localized EMP bursts to complete swarm termination. We have dedicated military vessels standing by with drone-specific weapons. We have isolated the construction zone from all inhabited areas, and if everything fails, we have the ability to collapse the entire swarm by triggering the master shutdown sequence that is hard-coded into every single drone's core processor." She paused. "We are not reckless, Commander. We are bold. There is a difference." Thexvar looked at his fellow observers. "This will cause panic in the Council. If humanity succeeds with banned technologies, other species will question why we maintain such restrictions. It could destabilize 50,000 years of carefully developed protocols." "Yes," Maria agreed. "It probably will. But that is not our problem. Our problem is building this sphere in 32 years. Your problem is deciding what happens to a galactic order built on caution when one species decides to sprint ahead." The communication ended. In the observation vessel, the 3 representatives looked at each other with growing dread. "They are going to succeed," Dr. Zexum said softly. "Their timeline is aggressive, but watching those drones work. They are going to actually build it." "Then we must report to the Council immediately," Thexvar said. "This changes everything." Below them, another chunk of Mercury broke apart and flowed into the waiting swarm of drones, each one learning, adapting, building toward a future that terrified the elder races. The age of caution was ending. The age of human audacity had begun. 15 years had passed since construction began. The Dyson sphere now wrapped around Sol like a partially completed shell, 40% finished and already generating more power than the entire Vexisthorian home system. But the energy output was not what kept the Galactic Council awake in their various forms of rest. In a secure chamber deep within Nexus Prime, the Council's Strategic Analysis Committee met in emergency session. The room was sealed against all forms of surveillance, swept clean of monitoring devices. What they discussed here could not be allowed to spread to the general population. High Analyst Craven of the Krell Collective projected a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed a web of interconnected technologies, all human in origin, all developed in the last 15 years. The web was disturbingly large. The Dyson sphere is merely the visible project, Craven began, his cybernetic voice stripped of all emotion. Our intelligence has identified 47 distinct revolutionary technologies that humanity has developed or deployed during its construction. Each one represents a significant advancement beyond current galactic standards. A Vexithorian military commander, General Thixara, studied the display with growing concern. Her crystalline form had taken on a dark red hue, the color of alarm. Show me the military applications. Craven highlighted several nodes in the web. The quantum entangled coordination networks they use for their drones. Our scientists insist this level of entanglement should not be stable at such scales. The mathematics do not support it. Yet their network coordinates 17,000 drones in real time across millions of kilometers with zero detectable lag. Military application? Thixara pressed. Instantaneous fleet coordination. No communication delays. No possibility of jamming. A human battle group could act as a single unified organism. The room fell silent. The Lumini representative, philosopher Dexal, spoke carefully. What else? Their material science has produced alloys we cannot replicate. Stronger, lighter, more heat-resistant than anything in our databases. They are using these materials in the Dyson sphere's structure, but the same alloys could be used for armor or weapons. Craven pulled up more data. Their artificial intelligence architecture is perhaps the most concerning. Our AI systems operate on pure logic, optimized over millennia for efficiency and predictability. Human AI systems incorporate something they call intuition and creativity. Their systems make logical leaps, recognize patterns we would miss, and adapt to new situations without explicit programming. That sounds unstable, Thixara said. It is unstable. That is what makes it so effective. A human AI can look at an impossible problem and find an unexpected solution. Our AI would follow established protocols and fail predictably. Their AI fails unpredictably and occasionally succeeds in ways we cannot anticipate. Dexal's energy form pulsed with a deep blue, the color of contemplation. I have been studying human history and psychology. I believe I understand what we are witnessing. All attention turned to the Lumini philosopher. The elder races, all of us in this room, we come from civilizations that are hundreds of thousands or millions of cycles old. We have learned through long experience that caution preserves civilization. We test thoroughly. We implement slowly. We avoid risks that could threaten our societies. This has given us stability and longevity. And humanity? Prompted General Thixara. Humanity is barely 300,000 years old as a species. They achieved spaceflight less than 300 years ago. They joined galactic society only 80 years ago. They have not learned caution because they have not had time to learn the consequences of recklessness. So they are simply ignorant and lucky? No, Dexal said firmly. That is what I thought at first. But I was wrong. Humanity knows the risks. They study our history. They read about our disasters. But they draw different conclusions than we do. Where we see a failure that must be avoided, they see a lesson that must be learned. Where we see unacceptable risk, they see acceptable cost. Dexal projected images of human history onto the display. Wars, disasters, failed experiments. Their own history is filled with catastrophic failures. They have nearly destroyed themselves dozens of times. Yet each time they survive, adapt, and try again. They do not fear failure the way we do. They expect it. They plan for it. And they learn from it faster than any species I have studied. Craven added more data to the display. The strategic analysis computer has been running probability models based on observed human behavior and technological advancement rates. The projections are disturbing. The display showed branching timelines, each one color-coded for probability. If humanity continues at their current rate of innovation, within 50 years they will possess fleet capabilities that match our own. Within 100 years they will exceed us in multiple key areas. Within 200 years, the balance of power in the galaxy shifts decisively in their favor. That is unacceptable, General Thixara stated. Her crystalline body was now glowing with deep crimson. We cannot allow one species to destabilize 50,000 years of carefully maintained order. What are you suggesting? Dexal asked, though the philosopher's tone suggested she already knew. preventive intervention, while we still possess overwhelming military superiority, before their technology advances beyond our ability to counter it. You are proposing we destroy Earth, Dexal said flatly. I am proposing we eliminate a threat before it becomes unstoppable. We have historical precedent. The Kethek species was exterminated in the 7th era when they developed technology deemed too dangerous. The Council agreed it was necessary for galactic stability. Craven pulled up another set of projections. Military analysis suggests we have a 97% probability of success if we act within the next 5 years. After that, the odds decline rapidly as human defensive capabilities improve. If we wait 20 years, success probability drops to 68%. 30 years, it becomes essentially a gamble. So we have a window of opportunity, Dixara said. We must act while we still can. Or, Dexal countered, we accept that our era of absolute dominance is ending. We adapt to the new reality instead of trying to destroy it. Adapt how? By allowing them to render us obsolete? By learning from them. For 50,000 years, we have refined our technologies to near perfection, but perfection means we have nowhere left to go. We have optimized everything to the point where we cannot innovate anymore. We can only maintain what we have built. Dexal's energy form shifted to a brighter color. Humanity reminds us of what we once were. Young, bold, willing to take risks and make mistakes. They are not better than us because they are smarter or stronger. They are advancing faster because they are willing to fail. To try the impossible, to question what we consider settled truth. That is a dangerous philosophy, Thixara warned. Perhaps. But the alternative is to destroy every species that threatens our stagnant order. How many times can we do that before we become the villains of our own story? The chamber fell into troubled silence. Finally, Craven spoke. The council has already split into 2 factions. The stabilizers believe we must act to preserve the existing order. The integrationists believe we must find a way to coexist with humanity's disruptive innovations. The vote will be close. When? Thixara asked. Soon. But we may not need to wait for a vote. There are elements within the military who believe the council is moving too slowly. There is talk of acting independently, presenting the council with a fait accompli. Dexal's form flared with alarm. If rogue elements attack Earth without council approval, it could start a civil war within the Empire. Or it could solve our problem, Thixara said coldly. Sometimes difficult decisions require individuals to act when committees cannot. The meeting ended with nothing resolved. As the representatives dispersed, each carried the weight of an impossible choice. Preserve a 50,000-year-old order through violence, or accept change and hope for the best. In orbit around Sol, humanity continued building their impossible sphere, unaware that their greatest test was not the engineering challenge they faced, but the existential fear they had awakened in the hearts of an empire. 28 years into construction, the Dyson sphere stood at 90% completion. It was a marvel of engineering, a shell of gleaming metal and crystal that wrapped around Sol like a massive embrace. From space, it looked like humanity had caged their star. That was when the Imperial Armada arrived. 400 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They were led by Supreme Commander Thexvar himself, the same Krell observer who had witnessed the beginning of construction. His flagship, the Eternal Resolution, was 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to sterilize a planet. The human defense fleet scrambled to respond. 8 ships. Against 400. On Earth in the United Defense Command Center, Admiral James Kowalski stared at the tactical display with a grim expression. His second-in-command, Captain Lisa Martinez, stood beside him with her hand resting on her sidearm, though they both knew weapons would be useless if this came to shooting. Incoming transmission from the flagship, the communications officer reported. Put it through, Kowalski said. Thexvar's face appeared on the main screen. The Krell commander's cybernetic features showed no emotion, but his words carried the weight of an ultimatum. Admiral Kowalski, I am Supreme Commander Thexvar of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. I come bearing a resolution from the Council Security Committee. You are to immediately cease all construction on the Dyson Sphere and submit to technological oversight by Imperial inspectors. All banned technologies are to be surrendered. All self-replicating drone swarms are to be deactivated and destroyed. And if we refuse? Kowalski asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we will implement the resolution by force. You have 12 of your Earth hours to comply. This is not a negotiation. The transmission ended. Kowalski looked at his pitifully small fleet on the tactical display. Get me Dr. Chen, and get me a secure line to the Dyson Construction Command. 3 hours later, a message broadcasted from the Dyson sphere itself, transmitted on all frequencies. Dr. Sarah Chen appeared on screens across the solar system and across the galaxy. She stood in the central control room of the sphere, surrounded by displays showing the massive construct in all its glory. Supreme Commander Thexvar, members of the Galactic Council and citizens of Earth, she began. You are right to be afraid, but not of what we have built. You are afraid of what it represents. She gestured to the displays behind her. For 50,000 years, your civilizations have chosen safety over progress. You have chosen to refine what exists rather than create what does not. You have chosen the comfort of certainty over the risk of discovery. And in doing so, you have stagnated. Your technology has not fundamentally changed in 20,000 years. You have achieved perfection at the cost of innovation. We are not like you. We fail constantly. We take risks that horrify you. We build things that violate your safety protocols. But in 80 years, we have advanced further than you have in millennia. And yes, that terrifies you, because if we can do this, what else can we do? What else might other young species do? She smiled. You have given us 12 hours to surrender. I will give you 12 minutes to reconsider. Sarah pressed a control on her console. Activating primary systems. Engaging Dyson Sphere defense protocols. All construction drones reconfigure for tactical operations. Across the sphere, 17,000 construction drones stopped their work. For a moment, the solar system held its breath. Then the drones moved with frightening speed and coordination. They had not been designed as weapons. But they had been designed to adapt, to solve problems, to build whatever was needed. And right now, what was needed was not construction but defense. The drones assembled themselves into geometric patterns around the sphere. Each drone extended manipulator arms that suddenly crackled with stored energy. The quantum-entangled coordination network that had managed construction now turned to tactical planning. 17,000 independent units began operating as a single distributed intelligence. On the Eternal Resolution, Thexvar watched in disbelief as his sensors lit up with warnings. Commander, the drones are generating massive energy signatures. They are forming a defensive lattice around the sphere. Our targeting computers cannot lock on. Too many individual targets moving in coordinated patterns. Fire a warning shot, Thexvar ordered. Target the nearest drone cluster. A lance of energy leaped from the flagship toward a formation of drones. The drones scattered instantly, moving in 3 dimensions with impossible coordination. The energy beam passed harmlessly through the space where they had been a fraction of a second earlier. They predicted our firing solution, the tactical officer reported, adjusted their positions before we even fired. Then the Dyson sphere itself activated. Massive collectors that had been designed to gather stellar energy suddenly focused it into concentrated beams, not enough to destroy a ship, but enough to blind sensors, overload shields, and create interference patterns across the Imperial fleet's communication networks. We are being jammed across all frequencies, the communications officer reported. The quantum interference is unlike anything in our countermeasure database. Our ship-to-ship coordination is breaking down. Thexvar realized with cold certainty what he was seeing. The humans had not built a power station. They had built a fortress. And more than that, they had designed every system with dual purposes. The collectors could gather energy or project it as weapons. The drones could construct or fight. The coordination networks could manage construction or tactical operations. They knew, he said quietly. They knew this would happen. This was not a contingency plan. This was always part of the design. A human communication cut through the jamming. Dr. Chen's voice calm and steady. Commander Thexvar, your fleet is currently experiencing sensor blindness, communication disruption, and targeting failures. Your shields are being drained by our energy projectors. Your formation integrity is compromised. In approximately 4 minutes, our drones will have you completely surrounded in a 3-dimensional envelope with overlapping fields of fire. She paused. You came here with 400 ships to enforce the Council's will. Let me be very clear about our position. We will not surrender. We will not dismantle what we have built. And if you fire on us, you will learn exactly how effective adaptive AI tactics can be when applied to warfare. You cannot defeat this fleet, Thexvar replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Perhaps not. But we can make you pay a price you are not willing to accept. Your simulations probably show you can destroy Earth and the Dyson sphere with acceptable losses. Maybe 50 ships, maybe 100. But those simulations assumed you were fighting a conventional defense. You are not. You are fighting 17,000 independent units that learn from every action you take, that adapt in real time to your tactics, that share knowledge instantaneously across the entire swarm. More warnings appeared on Thexvar's tactical display. The drones were now producing energy fields that his engineers could not identify or counter. The Dyson sphere's beam projectors were creating interference patterns that made accurate targeting impossible. Every ship you lose here, Chen continued, will be analyzed by your political opponents. The integrationists will use your failure to argue for cooperation instead of confrontation. The other young species in the galaxy will see that humanity stood up to the Empire and survived. Is that the message you want to send? Thexvar looked at his tactical display, at the warnings, at the probability assessments that kept declining. His fleet could still win, but the cost was escalating with every passing minute. All ships stand down, he ordered. Withdraw to safe distance. As the Imperial fleet retreated, Chen broadcast one final message. We did not want this confrontation, Commander, but we will not be bullied into giving up our future. Tell the Council that humanity is here to stay. Tell them we are willing to share what we have learned, but we will do so as equals, not as subjects. The Armada jumped away, leaving the solar system in tense silence. In the Defense Command Center, Admiral Kowalski let out a breath he had been holding. We just faced down the Galactic Empire. No, Captain Martinez corrected. We convinced them that destroying us would cost more than it was worth. That is not the same thing. On the Dyson sphere, Dr. Chen sat down heavily in her command chair. Her hands were shaking. They had been gambling that the Empire would not accept heavy casualties for what was essentially a political statement. If Thexvar had pressed the attack, Earth would have fallen, but he had blinked first. And that changed everything. The message humanity sent that day echoed across the galaxy. The Empire could be resisted. The old order could be challenged. And sometimes the impossible could be defended. 4 years after the confrontation, the Dyson sphere stood complete. It gleamed in the darkness of space, a perfect shell around Seoul, pumping out more energy than 50 Imperial core worlds combined. Ships from across the galaxy came to see it, this impossible structure built in just 32 years. It had become a symbol. Some saw it as hope, others saw it as a warning. The Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than it had been in decades. Every civilization had sent their representatives, and many had brought their media. What happened today would reshape the galaxy. Ambassador Marcus Rivera stood at the central podium, older now but still sharp-eyed. Beside him, Dr. Sarah Chen carried a data tablet. On the screens throughout the chamber, a simple list appeared. 247 items. Honored representatives, Marcus began. As promised, we have compiled a comprehensive list of every new technology and methodology developed during the Dyson Sphere project. We are hereby submitting these to the Council for peer review and consideration. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Vexithorian High Engineer, the same one who had laughed at Earth's proposal decades ago, leaned forward. You are sharing your technologies freely, without restrictions or demands for compensation? Yes, Sarah replied. That is what scientific progress should be. Shared, tested, improved upon. We learned from your databases and historical records. Now we offer what we have learned in return. Craven of the Krell Collective pulled up the list and began reviewing it. His cybernetic features twitched as he read. Medical nanites that could repair cellular damage in real time. Faster-than-light drive concepts that exceeded current speed limits by orders of magnitude. Terraforming techniques that could make a world habitable in decades instead of centuries. Artificial intelligence architectures that combined logic with creativity. Each technology was marked with notes. Violates AI complexity limits. Exceeds safe replication parameters. Contradicts established physical models. Dangerously aggressive implementation. And at the end of each entry, the same phrase. Respectfully submitted for peer review. Construction timeline assumes Council approval is not granted. You are saying, Craven stated slowly, that you will build these things regardless of Council approval. You are informing us, not asking permission. Yes, Marcus said simply. We will not surrender our future to bureaucratic caution. But we believe in transparency. We will share our methods, our successes, and our failures. You can learn from our mistakes or repeat your own. The choice is yours. General Thixara, her crystalline form glowing with suppressed anger, rose from her seat. This is precisely what we feared. You are dismantling 50,000 years of safety protocols. You are encouraging other species to ignore established wisdom. You are destabilizing the very foundation of our civilization. Your civilization has been stable for 50,000 years. Sarah agreed. But stable is not the same as healthy. You have achieved perfect stagnation. You maintain what exists but create nothing new. Your technologies have not fundamentally advanced in 20 millennia. You do not innovate anymore. You only preserve. And what is wrong with preservation? Demanded a Lumini conservative. We have achieved peace, prosperity, and longevity that your species cannot even imagine. Why would we risk that for unnecessary innovation? Philosopher Dexal, who had spent years studying humanity, rose slowly. The Lumini Elder's energy form pulsed with a warm golden color. May I speak to this point? The chamber fell silent. Dexal was respected across the empire for wisdom and careful thought. I have studied Earth history extensively, Dexal began. I have read their philosophy, their art, their science. And I have realized something that shames me. We have been asking the wrong question for thousands of years. We ask what could go wrong. What are the risks? What might we lose? These are the questions of a civilization that fears change more than it desires growth. And they are safe questions. Wise questions, perhaps. But they are also the questions of a society that has stopped dreaming. Dexal turned to face the assembly. Humanity asks different questions. They ask, what could go right? What might we discover? What could we become? These are dangerous questions. Reckless questions. But they are also the questions of a civilization that still believes the future can be better than the present. For 50,000 years, we have chosen safety. We have eliminated risk. We have perfected our systems. And in doing so, we have lost something essential. We have forgotten how to reach for the impossible. We have forgotten how to fail, learn, and try again. We have forgotten how to hope for something we have never seen before. The philosopher's form brightened. Humanity has not forgotten. They fail constantly. Their history is filled with disasters and catastrophes, but each time they stand up, learn from their mistakes, and try something even more ambitious. This Dyson sphere is not just an engineering achievement. It is a statement that the impossible is merely difficult, that the forbidden is merely dangerous, and that the future is worth the risk. So I ask you all, do we destroy them for showing us what we have lost? Do we cling to our safe stagnation and punish those who dare to dream? Or do we remember what we once were, when our own civilizations were young and bold and unafraid? The chamber erupted in debate. Voices raised in anger and hope, fear and excitement. The vote, when it came hours later, was closer than any in recorded council history, but the result was clear. The human integration protocols passed by a margin of 3 votes. The protocols did not restrict human innovation. Instead, they created a framework for other species to learn from human methods. Joint research projects, technology sharing agreements. Most importantly, a new category of experimental research that allowed controlled risk-taking under human advisement. It was not a revolution, but it was a beginning. 5 years later, the first Vexthorian research team successfully completed a project using adaptive AI learning. It failed twice before succeeding. The researchers reported feeling something they had not experienced in their long lives: the thrill of uncertainty, the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of overcoming a challenge that had seemed impossible. 10 years later, the Krell Collective launched their first self-replicating drone swarm for asteroid mining. They lost control of it within a month and had to activate emergency shutdown protocols. But they analyzed the failure, adjusted their approach, and tried again. The second attempt succeeded. 15 years later, the Lumini completed a breakthrough in faster-than-light travel that they had believed was physically impossible. It worked by violating 3 fundamental principles that they had considered unbreakable laws. A young Lumini scientist, when asked how they had achieved the impossible, replied, "I asked myself what a human would do, and then I tried it." On the observation deck of the completed Dyson sphere, Dr. Sarah Chen stood with Ambassador Marcus Rivera, now truly old but still sharp. They watched the construction drones break ground on humanity's next impossible project. a wormhole gate network that would connect 1,000 star systems. The Empire's best estimates suggested such a network would require 15,000 years to complete. Humanity had allocated 50 years, and this time they would not build it alone. A dozen species had volunteered to join the project, eager to learn human methods of rapid innovation. "We changed the galaxy," Marcus said quietly. "We reminded the galaxy what it could be," Sarah corrected. "They were always capable of this. They had just forgotten how to try." She pulled up the project timeline on her tablet. 50 years was the official estimate. But looking at the rate of innovation across the Empire, at the new willingness to take risks and accept failure as part of progress, Sarah had a feeling they could do it faster. "Let's see what we can do in 25, she said with a smile. Below them, the first gate components were already taking shape, constructed by drones from 6 different species, each one bringing their own approach to the impossible. Humans provided the audacity, but the Empire provided the wisdom of experience. Together they were becoming something neither could be alone. The age of stagnation was over. The age of impossible dreams had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Across the stars, on worlds both old and young, scientists and engineers looked up at the night sky and asked themselves a question they had not asked in millennia. What if we tried? And in asking that question, they had already taken the first step toward an answer.